Okay, so this is Many Hats, Part 1. This is about where your image should be by the time we next meet. So we start off with a 9 by 12 sheet of black paper. I've put about a ½ inch border around the entire image, not for any particular reason. You can see I start off with gesturing and a kind of constructive line, breaking everything down into primary shapes and forms, looking for lines of relationship, visual relationship, using the same measuring techniques to find, say, the distance between the nose and the chin and the top of the overalls. A little bit of texturing. My overalls are striped. Adding in some of the folds. So I am breaking things down into secondary shapes at this point. Then back to directional lines, trying to establish the eyes, the nose, the lips, where they belong. Now I'm starting to break the nose down into smaller units. Notice that my features, since my head is cocked to the right and down, all line up on a diagonal. The oculus underneath the glasses, situating the back of my head and the ear, drawing a construction line between my nose and the ear to locate the lobe in the correct place. That little move was a little bit about cross-contouring to get the shape of the hat, but also a little bit about getting some light in there. Now I'm using very light pressure, and I'm creating a sense of the direction of light. Notice that I don't bear down very hard. It would be the equivalent of a light gray pressure if I was using a black tool. Now my nose has a lot of light on it, so I'm really bearing down hard there. A lot more pressure. If you're confident that it's on the light gray to white spectrum, you might as well push it that way. But if you're not, just leave it a middle tone gray. Notice there's certain areas where I'm going very hard with the white, opaque almost, solid. Those are those reflective highlights, those hot spots where the oil from my skin is reflecting the light. Here I'm drawing through and over the glasses, looking for the negative shape between the edge of the glass and what's behind the glass. Pushing the temple a little bit more, the neck. The neck's definitely in a bright light, so I can confidently push those values. Not quite opaque, but really close. When I say opaque, I mean solid, no black reserves showing through. Almost pure white, but not quite. Just like in black tool drawing, you want to reserve the white to keep it pure. But in this case, you're using the tool to create that pure white when necessary. Starting to color in the shirt, again a light gray. The shirt I'm wearing is a tan, so it's definitely not on the white side, but it is on the light side of the value spectrum. So I just do a casual gestural hatching, very light pressure. And then where I see the folds, the peaks, and the valleys, I start to increase the pressure to give that sense of drapery in my shirt, that flow. Notice in the shadow side of the neck, I keep it relatively gray. On the light side, I keep it heavier in pressure to bump up the contrast. You have to sharpen your color pencil a lot. That's what I keep doing into that little white dish. And my beard has a lot of gray in it, so, well, I'll step back. A lot of white in it. So those areas are going to get opaque pretty quick. the philtrum in my upper lip, that dot on the end of my nose that's reflecting light. There's really no black in the skin, so eventually I'm going to do a light wash over the whole area of my face and neck. But for now, I'm being cautious because there are some dark shadows being cast by my glasses. And of course, there's my beard, which has some dark in it still. So slowly but surely, I'm building up lighter and lighter tones, squinting a lot. Some contouring to shape the hat, some heavier tone to get the light on the hat. I also do some background scribble just to knock back that black. But remember, in this project, we're trying to keep the background darker so the light has the figure. Since we're looking at the masters like Rembrandt and Caravaggio, those who were exploring tenebrism, we want to keep a good contrast between the background and the foreground. Now in a minute here, I'm going to go off the rails. Somebody called me on the phone and it stopped the recording. Suffice it to say, I was not happy, but I didn't want to start over. So instead, I started a new drawing, just so that you could see the whole process at one time. I'll return to this in a moment. So this is where I left off when I got interrupted. And this was the new drawing I did, angry as a hornet. So here's a quick zoom through of the process of the white underdrawing. The term for it's grisaille, because it's basically just a grayscale. And that's what you're looking for here, a completed grayscale drawing. The image I sent you is your map, and you're trying to translate it into just black, white, and gray. So squint a lot and really try to match the values. Again, you can see the areas that are light but not the lightest I keep relatively gray. But I'm pretty confident in the areas where I can see really white whites, and I go ahead and fill them in as light as I possibly can. No sense in being timid there, but you better be sure. You can erase colored pencil, but it's not easy, and you got to be careful and patient. Otherwise, you'll rip the paper. I forgot to draw my border, so I'm doing it a little bit late. Back to drawing. Drawing when you have glasses on, meaning when the subject has glasses on, is kind of difficult. You really have to pay attention to the negative space. Don't draw what you think. Don't draw a symbol. Just draw patches of tone and value. Remember, it's a puzzle, and you're just looking at the shapes within the boundaries of that puzzle. You have no idea how mad I was. But it was kind of fun to do this very emotional drawing. Kind of scary, too. Contouring is not illegal, just like it's not illegal in regular positive drawing. The opposite, which is this, is called negative drawing, because we're using the negative spaces to create the shadow. It's not exactly like a reductive drawing, but it's similar, because you're drawing the light. There you can really see how I work that eye in. Shape by shape. I'm not drawing an almond shape with contours and filling it in. I'm just looking at the patch, the puzzle, and drawing the shapes that I see in that puzzle. One of the toughest things is these frames. They're darker than my skin, So I really have to draw around them. It's kind of a mind bender, but it's possible. Just so that you don't get too worried though, we will be using darker pencils over the top of this. So if you need to get out dark blues or blacks to draw shadows later, you can. Or you can just simply erase back to the white of the page or the black of the page. Boy, it's hard to get that white of the page lingo out when that's what you say most of the time. Again, what we're referring to when we say white or black of the page is the reserve of the page. The reserve is the color of the support on which you're drawing. So you can see I'm really pushing those light areas. I'm retaining some of the gray areas and even some of the black areas. Really trying to get a full range of value so that the light's very dramatic. I would call it heightened light. That's what you see in artists like Rembrandt and Caravaggio or Velázquez or Titian, especially during the Baroque period. Tenebrism, look it up. Tenebrism, tenebrism. Another term is sfumato, S-F-U-M-A-T-O, sfumato. It was that very atmospheric, very dramatic light that artists from the Renaissance, really all the way up until the 19th century, were interested. Emotion. Now we're back to the original, and you can see what you missed as far as the gap. But I think I caught us up with the angry drawing. You can see my face is starting to feel a lot more fleshed out at this point. I'm avoiding the darkest darks as best as I can. And I'm pushing between really tight, dense, heavy marks like in the nose where the light is really predominant, and the middle grays that are in the other areas of the face where my pressure is less. I notice there's a gap in my neck there. It's too dark, so I just shade over it. And you can see how that really fills out the form. Now I'm starting to play around by pushing those rolls in the fabric of my shirt a little bit more. And then back up to the other eye, the lower lid, the upper lid, the forehead. Notice as I transition into the shadow of the bridge of the hat, where my head goes underneath, I really lessen up the pressure and leave the black of the page alone. At this point, I'm noticing that my glasses on your right are not symmetrical with the glasses on your left, but I can fix that later. You can also see here I'm adding some of that tweed texture. Again, it's just about shape, marks of rhythm and repetition, and a good deal of focus on light. Now I'm starting to play around with some of the tertiary details in my suspenders. My suspenders are not the classic blue jean kind, they're the train conductor kind. And I'm sorry I misspoke, my overalls. They have those blue and white pinstripes on them. Work on the folds in my shirt a little bit more. There's also a grid texture there. So I just draw a grid texture right over the folds that I've created. It gets lost and found if you really look at it. It's not clear everywhere. I'm going to glaze over the shirt as well because the folds are not that deep, especially since it's a light shirt. It's not going to have too dark of darks when the folds are just kind of flowing and rolling as they are in this particular example. The hat needs to be brighter, so I glaze over it, get more light in it. I'm kind of playing around with the background, just some expressive marks. The important thing is that you get something going on back there. No blank spaces in this one. You don't have to be complicated or abstract like I'm being, but you're definitely going to be working in the negative space. These stripes are hard when there's a crease, so I have to really pay attention to the direction of the stripes. And then I glaze over it, lighten it up a bit. There's this really thin buckle, so the only way to draw it is to draw the space in between the buckle. Like that. Lightening up the shadows of the glasses a little bit, heightening some of the light. And that's it for this stage. So this is about where your drawing should be when you're finished. See you next class.